Hey, it might be winter, people, but that doesn't mean you can't have a wonderful feeling of paradise right at your fingertips. And I create my own paradise experience with Rum Haven. Rum Haven brings out the paradise atmosphere in your drinks. It's made with real coconut water, so if you're into that, amazing. And you all should be, because real coconut water is awesome. I mean, just personally, I just think that. Whether it's with club soda and your favorite cocktail, Rum Haven is here to meet all your spirit needs during the winter season. Sip into paradise and visit discover.rumhaven.com for the latest giveaways, recipes, and seasonal tips.
You're crazy.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Viall Files Bachelor Edition. We have a great episode for you. Justin Long is back. He was here for the Ask Nick. If you haven't listened to the Ask Nick with Justin Long, it's one of my favorites. I don't like. We've had some great guests on Ask Nick. He might be my favorite. He's great at advice.
He really did a great job.
He did a great job. Go make sure you check that out if you like listening to relationship problems and answers. You should check that out. But his takes on the Bachelorette are equally as strong, and I know you guys are gonna love it. We'll get right to Justin. Just a couple house cleaning. Is it house cleaning or just housekeeping notes? Sarah Silverman helps us break down the Bachelorette final, the last two episodes next week, and we have the final rose. Well, there is no AFR, but we have the runner-up, whoever that is. I still don't know, but I've been told we'll have the runner-up. I'm enjoying being spoiled free on this show. My guess it's going to be Zach or Brendan. If it's Brendan, he can just give me a lot of shit by getting his name wrong so often. I'm still not 100% sure I'm saying it right.
I have to say, on this episode, you did pretty good.
Brendan?
There was maybe one or two, but you hit the Brendan.
I get in my head about it. I'm not, episode. Anyway, so we'll have the runner-up on this show. So make sure to tune in. And other than that, I think let's get right to Justin Long. Justin, welcome back. It's the week of Justin. I just can't thank you enough for being a big part of the Viall Files these past few weeks. People have really enjoyed it, and
this is like I like to think I'm competing, and I've completed the Viathalon.
Yeah, you really have. Like there's very few people who have done it. Nikki Glazer has done all three. You have now done all three shows. That might be the only two.
Wow, good company.
Yeah, maybe Lauren. Did Lauren Zima ever do an Ask Nick? I don't know if she did. Anyways, but yeah, you're in rare company, Justin, and I thank you for it. And You're 2 for 2. You crushed the Ask Nick, and I'm pretty confident that this might be your best.
Oh boy! So I'm due for a slip up. I'm due for a really shitty.
We'll forgive episode. You if you do, but I have a feeling that you're going to be just fine. Before we get into Bachelor, I have a personal question. You were in LA, obviously recording with me, and then now you're back on the East Coast. Mm-hmm. You drove across country.
I did, yeah. I drove, so I took a slightly not a northern route. I went through Utah, Colorado, Nebraska. You know, the only thing more boring than driving through those states is talking about driving through those states. Iowa, they're beautiful states. I didn't mean that. It's just like when you're in the car, you know, the first 20 minutes of Nebraska is like, God, what a beautiful country we live in, and the heartland, and just I love farmland, and then you really romanticize it, and then like 30, 40 minutes in, it's like, okay, I get it. I gotta pee.
It's like, wow, we're in Delaware.
You were scheduled to fly. Did you decide to do this off of like, it's safer because of the COVID world we're in? Have you ever done that? Like, what made you want it? Like, I was like, oh, he's driving across the entire country.
Yeah, it wasn't so much being on the plane. It was, I started looking at the news, and they were showing footage of like the people in the airport, you know, all just huddled together. And I got really, I got squirrely about doing that. But there were, as it turns out, like a lot of these stops, you know, obviously you're stopping all the time for gas and to pee, and I have the bladder of a 4-year-old, and so I was constantly stopping. And a lot of these places, there weren't a lot of people wearing masks, is what I discovered inside, which was a little disconcerting. And I noticed they were looking at me. A few times I felt like they were looking at me. Yeah. Like you would look at somebody wearing a mask and gloves pumping gas before the pandemic, you know?
Yeah.
Like it hadn't happened.
Jeez.
I saw the same thing driving here to Montana. It was the exact same way. Through Utah, through Idaho, through all those things. It's the exact same way.
Yeah, I felt really bad for this. Yeah, anyway, I don't want to be political, but I was stunned by how few masks people were wearing. Not just that, it was the energy that I got from some of them. Like, what are you doing? Why are you wearing? You look like a freak. Like I had like a propeller beanie on my head or something.
Wow. Well, yeah. Was it at least like a bucket list thing to have done, or was it?
Excuse me. I had done it. I had done it before. I would love to take the northern route next time. I've never done that. So, Chris, you said you went to Montana. I've never done that.
Beautiful.
Through Montana.
I've done cross country like 4 different ways. So I think I've been to all states except for like 4.
Which ones?
It's Kentucky, Alaska, Hawaii, and North Dakota. But other than that, I've hit every state in the country.
Yeah. Louisville, I love. You should go to Louisville. I would like to do that. I'd like to do that northern route. It looks beautiful, and like parts of Colorado were just stunning. Utah, it's stunning. I forget living on the coast. Like what a beautiful country. We live in. We're so lucky. But yeah, and I also wanted to make it home for Thanksgiving, so I didn't have the luxury of stopping and seeing all the fun, weird sights that I think I would have done had I had some more time. But I did make it back in time. It was really nice. Because I had been traveling, I had a Thanksgiving with my parents, but I ate the dinner in another room. So it's like I was wearing a mask around them just because I hadn't been from the time I left, and I'm sure people are going to think this is now going overboard, but they're a little older, and I just wanted to be very cautious. So, yeah.
Nothing wrong with that, Justin. But I was personally curious about your road trip, and so I haven't had a chance to ask you about it. But
it was really fun. I listened to a lot of books on tape. I listened to a lot of podcasts. There's a great one, this New York Times podcast called I'm going to forget it, but Michael J. Fox's book I listened to. Yeah. It's incredible.
Our hero.
And he reads it, so it was so nice to hear a performance of his again. He's one of my favorite actors. So I felt like I got to spend all of Kansas and Iowa with Michael J. Fox in the car because it's such a personal story that he's telling. And Woody Allen's book I started listening to, and again, it's him reading it, so it's like you feel like you're there with these people in the car. Really nice.
Wow, that's very cool. Thanks for sharing. Hey, let's take care of our heads. Let's take care of our minds. And now there is no better time to work on meditation with the help of Headspace. I have been working on meditation for so long. And now with Headspace, I finally feel like I'm breaking through and actually getting something out of meditating. Sometimes you just have to take the time and we feel too busy, but Headspace is a nice reminder and helps us get our daily dose of mindfulness in the form of guided meditations in an easy to use app. Headspace is the only meditation app advancing the field of mindfulness and meditation through clinically validated research. So whatever the situation, Headspace really can help you feel better. Overwhelmed? Well, Headspace has 3-minute SOS meditation for you.
The cool thing here is also that they have meditation that you can do with your kids. So you can get up in the morning and do your own meditation, but they have it so that your kids can do it with you and you can start them off with the day going to school or whatever, homeschooling, get them all ready to go.
Let's calm those little fuckers down before they head out into their day.
Just calm them down. That's it.
I find that I sleep better if I rest my mind before I go to bed. And I've been using Headspace to do that. About 30 minutes before I go to bed, I pop open the app and I've been using it. And quite frankly, it's really been beneficial and I can't recommend it enough to my audience. Meditation is a real thing that has real benefits to all of us. And now in a time where we feel stressed, we feel overwhelmed, we just need to center ourselves, work on being present. Meditation is a great way to do that. And Headspace is a great way to help us meditate. You deserve to feel happier, and Headspace is a meditation made simple. Go to headspace.com/VIA That is headspace.com/VIALL for a free 1-month trial with access to Headspace's full library of meditation for every situation. This is the best deal offered right now. Head to headspace.com/VIALL today. Shavings make a pile. We know this, but it's always good to be reminded. In the holiday season, it's time for us to eat what we want, and that's fine, but we always want to make sure we're staying on track to our health goals. Our health goals might be more exercises, eating right. Maybe it's gaining weight. Maybe it's losing weight. Maybe it's just feeling healthier and having more energy. Well, you need to have the knowledge and power to make those habits, and so much of our diet plays a role in all those things I just mentioned. And Noom is helping us meet those goals. Noom is a habit-changing solution that helps users learn to develop a new relationship with food through personalized courses. Based in psychology, Noom teaches you why you do things and empowers you with the tools you need to break bad habits and replace them with better ones. Noom is not a diet. No. It's a way of life. That's right. Diets equate to temporary. Habits can be with you forever, and Noom is helping you make that happen. We can do this with just a little bit each day, maybe 10 minutes a day, to help you meet your goals of healthiness, wellness, and feeling good. You're human. Sometimes we get off track. There's no shaming, but Noom is helping you get back on track. It's a very easy to use app with a bunch of information about what you're doing and how to do it better. You don't have to change it all in one day. No. Small steps make big progress. Sign up for your trial today at Noom, Noom.com/VIALL. What do you have to lose? Visit Noom.com/VIALL to start your trial today. That's Noom.com/VIALL. Well, diving into The Bachelor now. We have 2 episodes to cover because one's not enough.
So much to unpack.
Justin was nice enough to not only talk about it, but watch back-to-back Bachelor podcasts.
Yeah, nice enough. It was a real struggle. I feel so lucky to have gotten to see it. I was supposed to watch it with my brother, and he's now nervous that I'm going to spoil something because we usually watch it together with his fiance. That's our little Bachelor pod. But I'm very excited to have seen it early. I felt very special.
Well, here you are. We open up with Blake finally getting a one-on-one, and I don't know about you, but like I thought to myself, if Blake gets a rose on this date, that might be the biggest upset in Bachelor Nation history. Like, I mean, we all knew, right? Like he had the only one who didn't know he wasn't gonna get a rose was probably Blake. Or did you? Or am I too read in on the show to have it be that obvious to me?
Well, Blake, I always, whenever contestants say things like when they reassert how real their connection is, it's a real connection, and like we're definitely connected. That to me is like a real red flag. And Blake did a lot of that. He sounded like he was treating it more like a competition.
Yeah.
Whereas somebody like, don't get me started on Brendan, how much I love him. But somebody like Brendan, when they say that it's real, which he does, I don't want to jump ahead, but he does later in the next episode, it's almost hard for him to say it. It's like it's a very intimate thing to admit. He's having real feelings. Whereas Blake would, he'd throw that around like, oh yeah, he was just protesting. Methinks the lady doth protest too much. He was protesting a lot. So I knew that, and he has such an intense, there's something so intense about him, and but then it's tough to read sometimes because Tayshia she seems so compassionate, and she's so good at being the Bachelorette. She's able to say nice things about the guys, and she can talk about them in a way that's very complimentary. So, but yeah, I didn't think he was going to make it through. I just felt bad for Tayshia having to cut so many. This is the first time it really struck me that a big part of the show is having to turn people down and having to say no to these people who are invested.
Yeah, totally. It's the hardest part of the job, so to speak. And because it's always the big setup, right? Like, let's give Blake the date where we're taking half our clothes off, we're sitting on each other, we're really connecting, right?
So awkward.
So Blake is, like you said, he's just so earnest, and maybe that's like the kindest thing you can say. He takes his love journey very seriously. We forget that he was one of the few guys that, other than Dale, was falling for Claire, right? You know,
that's right. Well, he also talks about it like it's a show, like it's a narrative on a show, and I think he is very aware of the show aspect of it, which it must be hard not to be. I don't blame him, but the way he talks about her and their connection, it feels very like he's trying to write his own love story, his own narrative.
So do you think it's insincere, or because I take it as, I see what you're saying and I kind of agree, because it's like there's like three different kinds of people go on the show, right? There's the kind of, you're Brendan, right? Like the skeptic reluctantly goes on, maybe is lucky or unlucky, depending how you look at it, to catch feelings in struggling with the insane world that they're in and trying to process their feelings. Then there's
that seems like the rarest person.
Yeah. And it happens to like 2 or 3 people a season, right?
Right. Yeah.
And then you have like, you know, the Bennetts of the world, and we'll get into it, who's like literally like actively and playing a character. Like he's just like, he doesn't give a shit and just, he wants to lean. And then you have people like Blake that it's like they're good at kind of believing their own bullshit, so they allow to be manipulated by the environment, even though they believe what they're saying to be their truth.
Yeah, I don't think it's insincere. I just think that's well said. I think it comes from a place of wanting something for themselves. And in this case, which everyone does, but in this case, it's wanting to succeed on the show as opposed to wanting to cultivate a real connection that exists. Because, like, you know better than anyone, either a connection, and you know within the first few seconds, really minutes of meeting somebody, whether or not there's a connection. And you know when you're close to somebody. Like, that's why the thing they made them do is so... It's so revealing that they made her straddle him, and like they're inches away from each other,
and you could see in her eyes right away.
Oh, right away!
Yeah.
In a moment like that, it's literally. It's like, I don't want to say literally hits you in the face, because that was one of the problems I had with Blake, is that he misuses a lot of them misuse literally. It's literally do or die. Someone says at one point. No, it's not. It can't be. I mean, that'd be a different show. That'd be a crazy show. But when you're inches away from somebody like that, it's like, it is impossible to deny the existence of those chemicals. And it's also impossible to fake. And even Blake, I felt like in that moment, he was, you know, you can see somebody struggling with how to play something, how to play a moment. And even Blake struggled, I think, with how to, it shouldn't be awkward. That moment, if you're really into somebody, shouldn't be awkward. Great, it should be the best.
It should be so obvious too. But it's interesting. I thought about this while watching it, because it's like, all right, should we try to give Blake the benefit of the doubt, right? Because you know, context is everything. Maybe we're just not seeing everything. Maybe we're seeing snippets of Blake sounding a bit delusional. But like, The Bachelor has shown many moments of people being like, I don't think she likes me that much. You know, or I don't, I'm not seeing it, or when they go
I've seen that.
When they go into the date, they're just like, you know, I'm going to keep it real. I feel like I'm behind some other guys, but this is my opportunity to catch up. You know, things like some sort of like honest interpretation of where, but you know, Blake goes in this like, this is it. I'm going to like, I've had a lot of group dates, but you know, we're you know, I believe those moments have been valuable, and now it's a chance for me. And I'm just like, where did you, in what are you basing this on, Blake? You know?
Well, you could say the same for, like you said, how he felt, or he was saying he felt about Claire. I felt that too. It was even more striking because she was so just clearly into Dale that she kind of shortchanged everybody else. Which you would naturally. I'm not blaming her. But I think it was even more delusional for him to have acted that way with Claire. And he would use language like athletes use, you know, like, you know, I'm going into this feeling really good and feeling our connection. It's weird the way he talked about it, like it was a sport.
Yeah.
Like,
and that's probably just how he's like, it is you can't, even if you don't want it to be a competition, you know, you're competing with your peers. So, but yeah, Blake was this, and to that point of those 3 categories, the Blake persona, the person who just wants to believe the delusion, is probably the most common. It's just easy to get caught up in that world, in fairness to
like
Blake.
you're supposed to be falling in love with this person because, like you said, Nick, the environment around you is created because everybody else is falling in love with this person.
Well,
so
yeah, you almost feel like you're
falling in
doing
love.
something wrong if you're not
Right.
falling.
Yeah.
If you're not, you don't want to be called out for not taking it seriously, or
Of course. Well, that all makes sense. And that's why I hesitate to say that it's phony, or I use words like that, because there is, and you said this better than I could, but there is a truth about that environment. There's a truth about how they're feeling within that environment. It's just that the environment is so heightened and weird and different than real life. So I don't know if Blake is, and also a lot of these guys seem like they probably are athletic and competed in sports, and that seems to come out, like a real sense of competition.
Yes.
Like he had this wide-eyed, when he'd get picked, it was like, oh, great, okay, now I'm going to be able to show what I can do, on a date. Like he was ready to get in the game there, coach. That's the sense that I got from him. And not, whereas somebody like Brendan, it's like there's a real sense that he just wants to spend more time with her, and that's the victory, is like just getting to be around her.
He's like calmer about it, and
yes,
totally.
Even when we'll get to that later, but I have a lot to say about Brendan.
But like kind of as expected, right when Blake is like, I feel it. I feel the connection. We're really connecting. Tasha's like, nope. And it gives her the excuse. But it's always like, those situations where, like, as soon as it happens, like, I feel it. Well, then Tasha can say, well, because you do, it's so obvious that I don't, even though it was obvious before going in.
It was, but it gives her, it makes it that much more
gives her the
clear,
out.
And it gives her the out. And I gotta say, she is so likable, and she's so good at this that it's the first time I really felt for the Bachelorette having to say no to all these guys, because especially somebody like Blake, because whether or not it's real or however you want to diagnose it, he is saying these things that are very like intense, and then to follow that up with no, like, I don't like you enough, I reject you. That must take its toll on somebody. And
I will say,
she seemed
not
very emotional.
In no way being critical of Tasha, I think we learned a valuable life lesson, and like in terms of breaking up, and fast forwarding a little bit to the tell-all, is that, and granted, in this context, it's the show, whatever, but those were Tasha's words. But when you break up with someone, at the risk of hurting their feelings or sounding like the bad guy, just be honest, right? Because she kept saying to Blake, if we had more time.
Yes,
which is not true.
I know. I thought that. I wrote that down. But in her defense, he was demanding. I mean, that got a little cringy. But he was insisting that she give him something.
In the show, I get why Tasha did it. She doesn't want to look mean. She doesn't want to look insensitive, and for all the reasons you compliment her for saying, oh well, she's empathetic and understand. In the real world, I'm just saying, if you're watching this and you're thinking this is how you break, no, because I believe Blake. I actually believe him when he said in the tell-all, he's like, I thought about what you said the whole time, about like needing more time. And that happens, like in real relationships. You'll say someone to something, and you're just saying because you don't want to be mean. You want to, you feel awkward.
I know.
Yeah,
I
and
know.
you just sometimes the cold hard truth of I just don't. There's nothing that's going to change this, and I just think we need to move on. It hurts, but it's the best thing the person can hear.
Of course, I know, but I can't imagine. How difficult even more difficult that must be when you're on TV and you don't, and have the lights and having to say. But I've been in Blake's shoes, I've been in Tasha's, and it is. But I would say I think the lesson too for anyone is that is that there is to find the truth in however the person said no to you, however the person said they weren't just. That, excuse me for saying this, just that into you, then you have to hold on to that. I mean, because the rest is just, it's just window dressing. It's the rest is just their way of not being able to, like you said, really say it. That's a fucking hard thing to say. Say, I don't like you. I don't like you enough. That is very difficult. I felt for her. And it sounds
so harsh, right? It sounds so harsh, but sometimes we don't need to hear it. But in Tayshia's defense, people in Blake's position, you have to be open to hearing that, right? You have to be willing to consider the possibility that you're just not a right fit for this person.
And also, whenever just read the room. I mean, a lot of these guys aren't great at reading the room. It's when you're inches from her face and you're both getting sort of twitchy and uncomfortable. That's not natural. If there is a connection, you're inches away from somebody, you start going at it. You start like that. You can feel it.
Yeah.
And so
you literally can feel an energy. It really reminded me on Andy's season, the way back. There was a moment we were in Connecticut and we were on a date and we were standing next to each other. And I literally said, "Can you feel that?" And she said, "Yeah." And we just started going at it. And it's true because you can feel like whatever it is going on between the two. And you're right. In that situation, if it was Tayshia was into someone, they would have just started making out. I mean, if we're going to spend a third of our life sleeping, we might well do it on the most comfortable sheets we can possibly imagine. And Brook Linen has those comfortable sheets. I have Brook Linen in my bedroom, my guest bedroom. I have Brook Linen towels, hand towels, beach towels, robes. I have Brook Linen loungewear. And
you love the loungewear.
I can't say enough about it. The loungewear, it's every time I put it on, I am not bullshitting you. I'm always like, wow, that's soft. Every time. Every time I put on those
every time you say it just like that?
Brooklyn, I do. I'll say it to myself in my head. Maybe not verbally. It's so good. It's so good. And you don't even have to take my word for it. Over 50,000 5-star reviews and counting. And they're so confident in their product that all of their bedding comes with a lifetime warranty. Lifetime. So don't wait. Do something nice for yourself or a friend during these holiday times. Go to brooklinen.com and use promo code VIALL to get 10% off your first order and free shipping. That's BROOKLINEN.com and enter promo code VIALL for 10% off your first order plus free shipping. Brooklinen and use promo code VIALL at checkout. If you're looking for fine jewelry for everyday wear that doesn't break the bank, Majory has it for you. Fairly priced, handcrafted, ethically sourced, and made to last. Pieces are minus the traditional markups. They're exquisite. They're fancy. I've given it to a couple people in my life. My mom, a special lady, and they loved it. Chrissy, what do you think about Majory?
I love mine. They have really cool stuff, actually. I actually got this one because it's actually the Leo stars, and my dad was a Leo. So I wear it around my neck to remind me of my dad. It's really cool. Sentimental pieces as well as just regular everyday jewelry.
Listen, I don't know a ton about jewelry, but I do know that the people I've given it to think it's great. They love it. They are surprised how reasonable the prices are and how... It looks well made, right? I mean,
it doesn't tarnish. It's not like that. It's not made out of anything. There's nothing worse than when you put on jewelry and you keep it on for a couple of days and your neck is green or something like that. It doesn't do that.
Majory's iconic pieces are going, and almost gone, so make sure to get it fast. And if you're looking for a great gift to give someone, think no further than Majory. Visit majory.com/VIALL for 10% off your order. That's majory.com/VIALL for 10% off your order. MEJURI.com/VIALL.
Oh, either that, or if it were somebody like Brendan, they would have both recognized how palpable that moment is, and then they would have gotten embarrassed for that reason and kind of looked away and gotten giggly, and that happens too, because it's like, it is a TV show. You probably can't really just start going at. I mean,
you can kiss, but
yeah.
But you're right. You would acknowledge how much you'd want to, or like, I'm just excited, or there'd be a giggle, or something. That to me is the other weird thing about the show that might be worth talking about, is that when they do kiss and make out on it, it's so there's something so chaste about how it's being done, just physically. Like these are adults who are
who are like avoiding certain parts of the body, and their hands are very strategically placed, and that's always interesting to me. That like it just seems so like there's a high schoolness to it, but which it has to be, right? Because it's on TV, you can't touch certain things. And,
and that's it's a show about withholding love, and that's why you fall in love, because you want so much. You want to touch and other things you can't have, and what you would normally have in an early dating situation, and that's what makes you want that person so much.
Yeah, it's all pent up. It's building up, and But having said that, did Blake really have a boner during that chakra thing?
No, I don't know. I'd be curious. I don't know. Maybe because Blake has kind of like even said throughout, like he kind of openly. It's like he wants to just tell the world he's just a horny guy. Like he kind of alludes to it now and then.
He does.
He doesn't have to tell the world. It's obvious.
So maybe,
he has feral,
maybe he
horny
did.
energy.
Maybe he did. But the show also has been known to like throw up black boxes to insinuate things that don't need to be there. Like you throw up a black box, you're like, oh, what's behind the box? I don't know.
I bet. Yeah.
So
what's in the box? Yeah, I bet. Yeah, I've noticed that before. They do it with some of the female contestants if they're wearing like a bikini or something. They're like, oh, they're drunk and stuff's not in its proper place.
So Blake gets sent home. Tasha's all torn up about it. Then they have,
But then why does she get so upset if it's not? Is that just like, oh, I don't want to hurt somebody, and he was.
There's.
She seems like a compassionate person.
A little bit of theatrics in those moments sometimes.
Yeah.
It's just
more about her than about him.
It's just, listen, there's a combination of a couple things. We're at the point of the season, Tasha is emotionally and physically exhausted, right? Mm-hmm. So a lot of times these emotions come out where like you're just fucking spent. All right. And you do feel bad. And then some of it is just like she probably like stood there forever until she had the waterworks or something, and then sometimes it's just more like, you don't want to look like the dick for breaking up with someone. So you allow yourself to feel a little bit more, like I always equate it to like, it's not fake tears. It's just like usually when you cry, you hold back your tears. Like we always kind of like hold them back. We get choked up. That's why we get choked up, because we're trying to hold things back. And on that show, you don't get choked up. You just let it fucking go. Like there's no restraint. So
that's interesting. You say that, Nick. Like whenever I see a crying scene in a movie, and I've been watching a lot of Hallmark movies lately, and so I like a holiday movie. So I noticed this a lot on those Lifetime Christmas movies where, and Brendan, not to keep bringing up Brendan, but there's a great example of this when he talks about his brother. You're right.
Yeah, you get choked up.
You get choked up, but you don't want to. It's what you try to hold it back, and the best crying scenes to me in movies are when they're fighting tears and they're trying to hold them back, and then the ones to me that are just not as genuine are when you can see them pushing the tears, and certainly you'll see this in a movie where like a character cries and they don't wipe away the tear.
Yeah,
they kind of let it. They're like, I know in their head. An exception would be in like Glory, with that great crying scene in Glory when Denzel Washington is. Oh, it's just like I have chills.
I watched it like 2 months ago. It was good.
Oh God, who will take the flag up? I will. Oh God, I'm getting chills. But when Denzel Washington, that tear comes down, that's different. He's bound. He's like, and he kind of wants him to see it. He wants him to. There's anger. There's so much in that tear. But for the most part, when I see an actor crying and not wiping away a tear, it's like it's the same as when somebody, usually women because they have longer hair, somebody's in peril, and they're struggling or they're running for their life. They're in a struggle that is very high stakes, and they fix their hair.
Yeah,
that to me too is when I'm like, no, I'm out.
Yeah,
I'm out. You wouldn't do that.
Or the fake eye wipe.
The fake one is the worst when there's nothing even there.
I don't mean to call it out, but the Sarah Jessica Parker, I call it.
She does that.
She always does this.
So
always does this.
Where would we put Tasha's tears in the spectrum of?
That's a good question. I don't know. You would know better than me. I just think I don't know where it's coming from. She does strike me as somebody who is she seems very compassionate. She seems like she doesn't want to hurt these guys. I'm sure a lot of it is, but then, and I don't want to jump ahead too much, but okay. when she admonished Ben for not having, I mean, Ben, that's a good example. When Ben got sent home, she seemed upset that he didn't show her enough. Which is
well, you compare. You're right. Compare Tayshia sending home Ben, who we all thought. I mean, honestly, what's the biggest surprise for me this season? I thought he might be the winner, right? And then all of a sudden,
did it.
But either way, it's strong connection compared to Blake, right? You compare,
totally.
And then she's like on the floor bawling. So it's like, which one? And
it's interesting.
That's where it's just like, okay, it's a little. And I actually think the Ben was more sincere because she likes Ben and she's mad at him for not doing enough because she felt like she was doing enough. And with Blake, it was like, I don't, can you just go and not make it weird?
But what does that mean? Is that selfish? Why does she need that from Ben? Why does she need Ben to match whatever emotions she's having? She's the one saying no to him.
She's gonna watch it back and be like, "Oh crap!"
Well,
I
it was
so.
like so emotional.
It was obvious to me more than any episode. This episode, Tayshia's love language is clearly words of affirmation. Like she needs to hear from you why and how you feel about it. She
says that about somebody like Ivan, right? Yeah. She's like, I like Ivan because it's usually one of the first things she says. He makes me feel, I forget how, secure or whatever it is, because he's constantly affirming. Yeah. And that Ben withheld that in that moment, in that like heightened high stakes moment. That really seemed to bother her, which I like Tayshia a lot. I don't mean, I don't want to shit on her, but that felt kind of selfish, and it felt like ego-driven response to this guy was like, this guy he just had, I felt like he was really hurt. He seemed genuinely speechless to me. The cameras are on. She's just met these important people in his life and she's rejecting him. To me, it's like, let the guy behave however he wants. Felt genuine. He doesn't want to give too much in that moment. I don't know. I was very.
It's tough. I mean, in defense of Tayshia, I totally agree with that. And in a bubble, but she's also just responding to questions and process. Like, it's her job to let us know how she feels, even at the risk of sounding selfish. And I'm glad she was honest about that, even though we now can critique it. I guess because it's
with
not
Riley too, right?
Riley too.
Riley was more close to the Blake cry, where it was like, I think she just felt really guilty and bad, but it was clear. I don't think she ever really had a strong connection with Riley. I think she respected Riley. I think she liked, appreciated the man that he was.
Yeah. Riley did a thing that really bothered me that Ben did as well. A lot of them do, where they will touch the woman's face and pull them into a kiss in this really cringy way. I think Ben did it. I think Ben even blindfolded her. Somebody blindfolded her and kind of tricked. Oh no, that was Bennett.
Yeah,
I was like,
Ben did it right at the end of his hometown. He couldn't say I loved you, so he tried to. He grabbed her and kissed her, and she reluctantly kissed him back.
Which to me, didn't that feel like? I don't want to speak for this guy, and I don't know, and I don't want to project how I would behave onto him. But if you love somebody, the few times that I've said that, it just kind of spills out, doesn't it? Doesn't it? Maybe maybe I'm not accounting for the cameras and doing it publicly and all. That must be just so, I can't imagine. But
it's hard because I agree with you, right? I'm similar to you, where you're you say it and you're like, am I crazy? Because I want to say this, right? I want to throw it out there, but who knows? Ben clearly, he's been very open about kind of some mental health issues. He talked about he's never cried. This is a person who obviously talked about suicide, and now he's mentioning he doesn't know if he has that side of him. I mean, intense. That was intense.
Yeah,
unpack that.
But excuse me. But then the thing that didn't make sense was when his sister, Madeline, great name. I love that name. didn't Madeline say, or one of them, was that Madeline's?
It's Maddie and Antonia.
And
they put was I missing that? They put no context around Antonia. It's her best friend,
was that her
cousin,
partner?
girlfriend?
Just a family friend.
I thought maybe it was her lover.
Yeah, we didn't know. Yeah.
Well, one of them, I like them both so much, but one of them said that Ben wears his heart on his sleeve. And doesn't that expression mean he shows his emotion? I mean,
he's very open about how he's feeling. Yeah.
But here's a guy who's then admitting that he doesn't cry and do that.
I can see how someone like his sister, who you would, let's just for argument's sake, knows him better than anyone. Mm-hmm. So she's had how many years to understand Ben and how he expresses his feelings. So it's probably just very easy for her to be like, see, this is Ben being emotional.
Right.
For someone like Tayshia, who needs to literally hear from your mouth how he feels about you. She's like, I don't know. I don't see it. So I can see why her sister's able to say that. Yeah, and while Tayshia's not able to feel that, because that Tayshia needs to hear it.
That's true. Yeah. And maybe this is the best. Don't you sometimes think when you see a guy like Ben who ended up being really likable, I think, and don't you often find yourself thinking like, God, you should not be doing this on a show. You should pursue a relationship outside of a TV show. I hope he does, because I'm rooting for him, and I know he's been through a lot. But it really struck me at the end of that episode, like maybe he's just not equipped with the cameras, and some people just aren't.
I totally agree. I mean, Ben's whole time on the show has been, for me and like even a lot of cast people, kind of an interesting one, right? On one side, like, listen, amazing. You're bringing awareness to something like suicide. It's something that we don't talk about enough. It's swept under the rug, and that literally can save lives. Mm-hmm. Should someone like Ben, who not so recently dealt with this, be on a show like this
last year?
And is it safe for him to be on? I mean, people who go into the show with strong mental health come out of this show the show damages your mental health. A lot of people can work through it, right? And it's not because you're vilified, and it's not, a lot of my friends who have nothing but glorious edits have had mental health struggles as a result of the show. Like, going from 0 to 100 with attention, it just messes with all of us in different ways. And
of course.
It's been kind of interesting, watching Ben, and I agree with you. I think it's great that he brought awareness. I appreciate him being vulnerable. If Tayshia sent him home, I think that's probably the best thing for everybody.
Yeah, and I'm rooting for him, but I just think maybe he needs some more time in the real world to kind of solidify this new person that he is. And I just hope he's not. It's interesting you say that, Nick, and it makes perfect sense that it leads to more mental health struggles, being on a show like that, and I just hope it doesn't give him more obstacles now in his life. He seems like a really nice, sweet person.
I DM'd him after the show last week, and I thanked him, and he was very gracious, and he mentioned how it was therapeutic, and I just said, great, but just know, whether it's me or someone else in the show, just don't be afraid to talk about it, because I've struggled with my mental health from the show. My friends have, and if it weren't for people who've had shared experiences, and he's like, and I'm happy to report, it sounds like this has been a very positive thing. And I mentioned to him, and the only reason I bring this up is I said, well, when the high wears off, let me know, because this experience is a high, right?
Oh yeah, the serotonin hits must be, and the dopamine, it must be like, it must be really intense.
There is without question a hangover.
The followers,
yes. And when you have the hangover, that's when you don't be afraid to reach out to anyone who can relate to that experience.
That's nice of you to offer yourself as a resource, because
I think other people have too, and I think I think people in our alumni group could always do. We need to do better. We need to be more inclusive. But and it happens from time to time, because it's hard to relate. But I am glad.
That's interesting. The high, to describe it as a hangover. I've seen that with a lot of actors. especially actors who have a lot of success very quickly when they're younger. That seems to be the perfect storm for disastrous mental health issues later in life. And I've seen it happen. And I've seen that hangover and how people respond to it. And it'd be nice to have somebody to. I think you did it's a nice thing you did. I mean, to offer yourself a service.
Yeah,
like
and
that,
I think other people have too. But
yeah.
I'm happy to report he has. But yeah, I agree with you that I think. I know we're jumping around. It's totally fine. We do that all the time. I'll say it right here since we're focusing a lot on Ben. I would be shocked if we don't see Ben still before the season's over.
Yeah, because it seemed the way they edited it seemed like there may be a different resolution. Like you might come now. That's happening more frequently. People coming back.
Yeah, that happens from time to time. But usually, as you know, like it's the norm is the Bennett, right? You sent me home. I didn't by the way, I love you, right? And it just reads just so insincere, right? We have so many insincere "I love you" on this show that when someone really feels like they really strongly feel and can't get the words out, like I just very few does that person not given every opportunity to come back if he wants to say it. Like Ben, he drove around in circles, right? They're on this compound. It's not like when he goes home, he just goes back to his room, right? Yeah. So I wouldn't be shocked if there's some drama that unfolds with Ben coming back and is able to give Tayshia
That's true. I didn't think
the
about
words
that.
of affirmation that she so desires. And how will that play out? Will it be? I mean, I guess this will probably be too late. I hope for Ben's sake, it is too late. But he's able to get the words out and feel good about himself that he's able to say it.
Yes, because you don't want to. I mean, I'll tell you, like. To regret anything. I mean, regret is a terrible thing. It's something I've struggled with, and it is the last thing you want for a guy like Ben, who has been in, dire mental positions. You don't want him to regret anything, and felt like he didn't speak his truth or whatever.
Yeah.
I just wonder if, again, I just hope he doesn't make the mistake of, in an effort to have some sort of closure and give her what maybe she wanted. I hope he doesn't say, "I love you," or "I was going to say I love you," if it doesn't feel that way. Because I really do think there's some value in the fact that he was not able to say it in that moment.
Interesting. That's a really interesting point, Justin, because you have, in that world, there is a pressure to say it, whether it's actually verbalized pressure. He even got the pressure from his sister. Yeah. So then we look at someone like Ben as...
I know the sister's like,
no,
you do love her. I mean, like, let him get it out. Let him, maybe he... And so then it's like, I could see the gears turning, and he's like, I do. It's crazy. But he didn't say, "I love her." He just kept saying, "It's crazy. It's great. It's, wild. Whoa. Wow.
Yeah, I'm really torn on that. Does Ben struggle verbalizing it, or is he just maybe more in tune with his feelings than anyone wants to give him credit for?
I mean, I would like to give him that credit. I also think, like, you have to really, even with somebody I love the connection between Brendan and Tayshia so much. I think it's such a rare. It makes me so happy to see them together, and they seem like they. But even something like that, it's to me, I would say that's clear they like each other. It's clear they have chemistry, and that is so clear. But love is something that I think you need. I think of something that I've learned just later in my life is that a huge component of love has got to be trust and
safeness, being safe.
Being safe, and we've talked about this. I think, like, what can you really know you love somebody if that hasn't been tested? If everything's been in this bubble at the La Quinta resorts and. Yeah. It's all been kind of like laid out for you, and the cameras are. Can you really say you love somebody? I don't know.
But to that end, and if Brendan is probably the one who probably makes Tayshia feel the most safe. Maybe Zach as well, because
Zach,
but Brandon can relate, and there's a calmness to Zach. I mean, to Brendan that Zach doesn't have.
Yes, totally.
And I think that makes you feel pretty safe. Getting back to like let's discuss Noah and Bennett before we get too far ahead with the other guys, and that's kind of the meat of the tell-all, anyways. Where do you land on Bennett and Noah?
I am very much Team Noah.
Same. All right. I'm glad. I assumed you would be, but I'm glad to hear it.
I think Bennett was really manipulative and had it in for Noah for reasons that aren't totally clear to me. It may be I think he must have been threatened by him, threatened by the ease with which Noah operated on that show. Noah had a real like easiness to him that even in the tell-all when he's talking to Tayshia, there was something refreshing about the way he said, I had a blast with you. I had a fun time. I don't know. He struck me as a very sincere guy. Whereas Bennett was almost the polar opposite. He felt like very performative.
Incredibly performative.
It's like he was playing the role of like an 80s douchey villain in one of those movies like Porky's or Revenge of the Nerds.
Yeah, I mean, the guy showed up with a purple scarf in an indoor atmosphere. Like he's he clearly.
Even this kind of like he had, I don't know how affected it is, but it felt affected. The way he spoke was almost like he had this. It was like he had studied. He might come from a very wealthy. I don't know his background, but didn't he allude to the fact that he didn't come from a wealthy
He alluded
family?
to it, but it could be just a total lie, and maybe it's just perspective. Maybe he's referring to the fact that like he grew up with people whose families were like billionaires, and his family was only like worth millions.
Yeah,
I don't know. You never know.
Because I don't know how you have that persona or personality, whatever it is. It felt very much like a persona for the show, but I don't know how you curate something like that without having some kind of background as a aristocratic, wealthy individual. It just felt like he was pushing that.
But he talks about his presence so much. He's so aware of what he gives off. He was like, this is who I am. This is the presence I give off. You're intimidated by me.
That's the hypocrisy and the lack of self-awareness, is that he talks about being so aware of his persona. His persona reads as someone who is a villain, who wants to be the douchebag, who wants to be condescending. He wore a purple scarf indoor. Like, you're doing this, and you're referring to it.
I think it reads that way, but I think he may have been I just wrote down Bennett is consumed by his role. I think he was trying.
Yeah.
I think he was thinking that role was impressive. I think he was playing impressive more than wealthy, douchey, entitled guy. I think, which is.
No, that was perfect. I think you summed it up and articulated it very well, that he was consumed by his role. Like, I think he kind of broke his own fourth wall on the show and was like, I want to be a character, right? But the question is, how much of this is actually Bennett in life, or how much is this Bennett decided to act on a TV show?
I don't know. I hate to sound, this is going to sound like intellectually snobby, but I was, and it may have been in the editing, but I was stunned by how little he knew in that trivia game they played. For a guy who went to Harvard, I mean, Harvard is, obviously it's a great school. And some of the words he chose, it was like he was trying so hard to sound, I'll use something that he would say, erudite. He was trying so hard to sound impressively erudite, where I'm trying to think of, but the words he chose were not all that impressive all the time, but he would say them as though, like, he'd be like...
Poor man's Pierce Brosnan.
Yeah, kind of. Or the poor man's, do you remember... or like Gore Vidal, or some, like, there were these intellectuals that had this air about them that that had a very mid-Atlantic accent. They sort of sounded like this, They sounded kind of, who sounds like that is in Good Will Hunting. Oh my God, I'm going to blank on his name.
The guy at the bar, the ponytail.
The professor. Oh, that guy too. The guy, the ponytail guy. Yes. Yeah, totally. Ponytail guy is very Blake. But I was thinking of the professor who plays the role, he plays one of his therapists.
the math professor.
The math professor.
It's George Plimpton.
Yeah.
George Plimpton was this incredible person and like personality, but George Plimpton had this very kind of hoity-toity, erudite way of speaking. It's almost like Bennett's trying for that. He's going for that.
The therapist for in Good Will Hunting was like, I can't do that. This is beneath me. Yeah.
Yeah. When he starts singing "Afternoon Delight."
Yes.
Afternoon Delight. Yeah. I felt that way about Bennett, where he was, but he wasn't all that. To me, Noah felt just as bright, if not brighter.
Way smarter. Right,
way
that's
smarter.
I think Bennett values sounding smart.
Yes.
And he values people thinking he's smart, and he's less concerned about actually being smart, right?
Yes,
so he has his talk track. He knows what works for most people, and he probably recognizes that most people in this world don't take the time to ask follow-up questions. They just assume by how he looks, they're going to assume he's smart. Where if you get Noah, and if you get Bennett in a room, and you're like, all right, let's see what you got, he crumbles. In fact, we talk with Noah coming up, and he refers to that, for the people listening, that like, if Bennett hasn't planned out what he's going to say, he can't think on the spot.
That's interesting.
And that's Noah's interpretation.
That's interesting. Yeah, he felt very rehearsed. He felt very but poorly performing some of his speeches and his moments. Like when he gave the gift, that to me is something. There's also something so immature about that. That's the irony, is that Bennett was accusing Noah of being too young and too whatever, but Bennett behaved like such a baby about that. He had this gift bag for him, and Noah called it out right away. He like spotted it. It was like, oh, this is passive aggressive. You're doing this to make a point. This is not a genuine gift. Much like his apology on the tell-all was not a real apology. He couched it with like, it was all qualified. It's I can't stand guys like that. I can't stand people like that.
Yeah, we grew up in Connecticut, Justin.
Sorry I made you feel that way. I'm sorry. It's all about that person's
I'm sorry
feeling,
you feel that way.
Not
exactly.
about their actions. Yeah, or even if they say, "I made." It's their focus is on how that person's interpretation of your actions, not what you did.
Yeah. That's infuriating. That drives me nuts. And Noah, to his credit, was very. He stood his ground, and even though a bunch of those guys, Ed, a bunch of those guys were ganging up on him. It's almost those really insecure guys, when they smell blood, they really they converge, on somebody like Noah.
I was disappointed in Ed, and because you watch those and you're just like, it's so obvious, and then the only explanation for the Eds or Kenny was, you smell blood. You think the crowd is going to agree with Bennett, and therefore that's what you do. But and they couldn't be present in the moment to listen to what was saying. Right? They thought Noah was the villain, and so they're going to disagree with the villain, and then they ended up sounding like idiot. I mean, it wasn't a good look. It wasn't a good look.
It wasn't a good look. I also think they were probably threatened by Noah, because he does have this kind of affable. He's got this charm. He's got like a very easygoing. He clearly had a connection with Tayshia, because whereas those guys didn't seem to at all. So they may have just been threatened by that.
Yeah, I mean, it could be all those things, but it's like Bennett, fine, he's doing his stick, and maybe it's a caricature, he has his own issues, but it's like, at least think for yourself, the other guys. I was like, the people who attempted to defend Noah definitely won some credibility, because they were like, this is ridiculous. Was it DeMar who?
It was DeMar
who defended even Chasen. Like, I loved how he defended Chasen, who wasn't there for some reason at the tell-all.
Why wasn't he there? I wondered that.
We don't know. So sometimes it always happens. I thought it was odd, though. It's like, all right, if Chasen's not going to be on the show, I'm surprised they spent any time talking about it. They usually don't do that. If someone's not there to defend themselves.
It was they talked about it more through the lens of the other guys. It was also he was such a big part of that show. Chasen. But
I thought DeMar, I agreed with literally everything DeMar said. It doesn't matter whether you agree with Chasen or not, but just like how, like, you just decided what he said was disingenuous based off of like literally nothing.
Yeah, exactly. And so what? So he used. What was their? What was the issue that they took with him?
Smoke show was somehow a
smoke show. That's right. That he used the same language to describe both both Claire and
smoke show
Tayshia,
was his new word.
Oh, that was the new.
That was the new word. Don't even get me started on the smoke show.
But what do you think of smoke show, Chrissy?
I think it's so douchey. It wasn't that the word was smoke show. It was that he presented it in a way that was like, he literally said, "This is my new word. I'm going to call her smoke show."
Oh, right.
But you're confusing Chasen being simple-minded, maybe, and maybe not as charismatic as Noah, as someone who's bad, ill-intentioned. That's two different things. Also, you don't know this, Justin, but no, Chasen just reminds Chrissy of some guy she was hung up on for a better part of a decade.
I mean, Chasen is not. I don't think he's.
I mean, if I showed you, you'd be like, "Oh, okay, I get it."
Oh, really? Oh, really? All right.
There might be a little truth in that, but I just thought that was douchey the way it said.
It is. He's definitely douchey. I mean, that's not. He's definitely douchey, but it's like, why concern yourself that much? And a lot of those guys, whenever they have such a problem with things like that, it starts to read as though they're guilty of a similar thing themselves. I mean, people in glass houses. I think like Ed for sure was, Ed is not necessarily there. He kept accusing other people of being there for the wrong reasons, and I don't know. It seemed like that guy.
It's a classic case, kind of like you said before. It's much easier just to tell yourself the reason you're not getting time is because someone else is stealing yours, as opposed to, well, I'm not getting time because she doesn't want to talk to me.
She doesn't like me as much. I mean, that's a tough thing for and a lot of it's tougher for some of those guys to face than others. And I love those excuses. I love that if she had, what is the one they always say? Oh, I wish I had more time. It's just, I wish I had more time. I wish I could have shown her, more of me. If she had seen more of me, she'd, it's like, these are guys that have never really been rejected in their lives. So it's always, you could see them, they don't know how to respond. I think it's a very unfamiliar position for a lot of these guys to be in. Yeah,
no, I would agree. I mean, do we want to spend any time on Yosef other than like, I was truly very few times am I blown away by someone's willingness to just act like a terrible human being on national television.
I know.
Like the show.
That's what Chris Harrison.
Yeah, right? Because like Noah's a perfect example of like, listen, the show needs drama. They need a villain, whether it's in the actual sense or just like in a TV personality. And like Noah kind of took one for the team, so to speak, at parts of the season, right? But like the show is like, they're not trying to like bury anyone type of thing, right? Like, and then you have someone like Yosef, like who they bring out, who they love a good contrition, and a self-awareness of like, hey, you know what? I got caught up in the moment. I certainly had a strong opinion, but no woman should be talked to that way. I wouldn't want a guy to talk to my daughter that way, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the guy comes out just fucking,
it was a layup,
guns blazing.
I know.
It was just so wild. I'm watching it thinking, what's the angle? What is the defiant?
I wondered that. I don't know. I mean, every one of those guys, and to their credit, they spoke up, but it was undeniable. That to me, that's like, you could even argue in favor of Bennett, or, I mean, it'd be tough, but I can see, it's possible. There's some gray area, but with a guy like that, and when they played it back, I had forgotten just how abusive and just how like deeply misogynistic he was being at the time. It certainly didn't age very well.
No,
but I got it. What a horrible display. And now he's got time to sort of reflect, and the emotions aren't there, and the ego maybe is abated. So you would think he would take that opportunity, and they were certainly giving it to him. Like you said, I've noticed that they like a good redemption story, and yeah, it was incredible. I mean, in a way, in a sinister way, there's something admirable about that, I guess, that he was.
I mean, he is, God, all I could think about is like, God, just like how could any woman want to watch it and go, I want to get in a relationship with the guy so that when he's like, so then when we disagree with each other, there is like, he will never back down. This guy will, he will never back down from a position because clearly he couldn't be more wrong. And he just, what he kept emphasizing is how much pride he took and not having his mind being changed. I'm not going to let people change my mind. This is how I feel. And the honorable thing to do is to put my foot down and hold true to what I thought. And he was trying to spin that in some sort of noble action. And that's a dangerous person to be in a relationship with when you have disagreements.
He also has a daughter who sees him talking that way and probably goes to school.
That's what made me really depressed.
That's
what made me depressed.
No, it was a sad moment. I was just like, ugh, gross.
Because it's one thing for a human being like that to be out there and operating in the world, and like you think, okay, well, that's who he is, that's how he is, and hopefully he won't hurt many more people. But he has a charge. He's there's a girl out there who looks up to him and is going to hear this, and that's really. It's sad. It's really sad. And I also wonder how much of that is, not to sound like the old guy, but how much of that is a product of a social media culture that doesn't allow for, real dialogue and a genuine back and forth and a, I think it's easier for people to be set in their ways on social media.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because if I'm trying to find not necessarily any justification, but reasons of his mindset going in and how he was able to justify it for himself, is Claire wasn't all that liked by the end of her run on the show, right? She was, in a sense, the villain of her own season. Right. There are certainly some very conservative people out there, people who even love to hate on, and a lot of women won the show, and a lot of women love to hate on other women. And so I guarantee you, Yusuf's DMs were flooded with a lot of people who were like, you know what? I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you called Claire. I bet he got a lot of those. He also probably got a lot of hate, but he could have chosen to just be, sometimes people look for criticism and people look for validation. More people look for verification that they were right. And if he was looking for it, he definitely had a lot of people DMing him saying, thanks for standing up for what was right.
Oh, I bet you're right. Oh my God, I bet you're right.
And he went into that tell-all feeling justified.
And empowered by all that positive reinforcement.
30 DMs.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, he definitely didn't strike me as, he is he's such an extreme example of somebody who is not looking to be corrected or to be critiqued at all. The fact that he sat there in a room full of his peers and Chris Harrison, who was being really patient, and I think they must all look up to him. He must be an authority figure to all of them. There must be respect, at least. Yeah. Like, he's the guy who's been, and he is so patiently giving him this out. And the fact that he would, I wonder I bet you're right. I don't know how else to explain that.
Yeah, I don't know how else to explain it either. And I that definitely does happen. Without knowing for certain, I'm like 90, like I've never been more certain about something I can't prove, that Yosef got a bunch of DMs of people agreeing with him. Well,
I had forgotten this, but the craziest thing that he did, I think the moment that was the most revealing about how he thinks and who he is when he started talking about his daughter, and this is taking away time from my daughter. And I've heard other bachelors say that before. They've used the kid that they're not able to see as things are as evidence of how important this is to them, or however they've used it. But in this case, Claire tried to commiserate with him, and she was like, yeah, my mother is dying. And
she literally says
cut her
she's
off.
Dying. And
she's dying.
Dying.
Yeah. He cuts her off.
Sick, dying.
Yeah. And he doesn't hear it except as something that is stepping on what he's saying. Hold on a second.
Let me
finish my thing. That to me was like, what more do you need to see out of a human being like that? That's the thing that I would, if I were him, and I'm so glad I'm not, I would be most embarrassed by,
Yeah,
shamed
no,
of.
it was really
shameful.
I can usually watch the show like you just said, and even with the Bennetts, be like, all right, maybe he's playing a character. You see the nuances, the sides, and I still reserve right to like judge Bennett as a human being until I meet Bennett in person and like have a conversation with him, right?
Yeah.
But this Yosef situation, it's just like I have
scary,
no fucking interest in hearing him out. He was given an opportunity. Ample opportunities, and quite frankly, to your point, Chris Harrison didn't have to do that, but Chris was just like, come on, man, like no one wants to see
I bet.
No one wants to see this message put on national television, but that's so.
But what do you think was the thing that triggered? Why do you think that triggered him so much about the other contestants taking off their clothes? I started to think, well, maybe he has like maybe he's embarrassed of his body, or maybe he's not super confident, and if he were in that position,
there's
he'd be
a small D energy there.
Yeah, there really is. I mean, that's
I forgot that he wasn't even on the damn date. He wasn't even there.
I know he had been worked up about something prior to that. I kind of forget, but he was already. Maybe he just felt like he wasn't getting enough attention from her, or he didn't have a real connection with her. Maybe he was already thinking,
no, I mean, Yosef has to work through some shit, whatever it is. Don't know, hard to, but
just one last word on Bennett. Did you notice what a terrible walker he is?
Walker?
He was so bad at walking. He does this thing where, I mean, sometimes it's like when they walk with the hand in their pants, when it's this, it's like, you can't see it, but it's like this, this like self-conscious
no, you're right. He's thinking about every movement and every motion. Every
motion. Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Like,
and his head would literally with his like nose in the air, kind of like,
he's not walking. He's thinking about his gait.
Yes. Every you're right. Every moment. How is my hand looking? How is my jawline looking? He is so self-aware. I guess that's the best way to say it, which is so fascinating. I just don't understand how Tayshia, after he said, I love you I mean, it was like he was at the...
Creepy.
It was like he was at the DMV or something, and he was like, I have to like apply for I got a new car. There was something so kind of like weirdly
he failed his driver's test, and his only out was like, "Hey, Dorothy, I love you."
Yeah.
Do I pass now?
Yeah, and like kind of sweated. There was that sheen of like, the ones that are, I think, a little bit more fraudulent get sweatier. That's my theory, is that they start sweating a little bit more. But
it's your body's rejecting your own words, kind of thing. Yeah.
yes. Like, what are you doing? No, this is not real. But he started sweating, and he had this kind of like. There was almost this mischievous little smirk that he got after he said it, like, do you accept that? I just can't believe that Tayshia wasn't like, because I've seen this happen on the show, and it's crazy. Whenever the contestant, they're ones that feel, I forget the last one to do this, but they feel like they're losing. They feel like that there's not as much. So they use one of their moments with them to be like, I love you, to like drop the I love you too early. And they get called out on it, and it is
the best. It's like to the extreme. It's like they're on a group date. They're not even talking to the lead one-on-one, and they're just like, "I got cheated on in the 3rd grade." It's like
yes. It's like, what? I'm sorry, but this is not the time. That came out of nowhere. But I can't believe she was like, and maybe this is how they edited her. But she was like, "Wow, I got to really think about this." Do you think? She seems smart and perceptive. Do you think she didn't see through that? That she, that it gave her, I can't believe it gave her pause.
It weirdly, whether, I don't know how you edit around that. She really made it seem like there was some, it was that classic, she made it seem like there was something about Bennett that she was drawn to. Maybe she wasn't going to be her person, but she, I mean, Tayshia said it. I think Tayshia likes the finer things in life.
She said she was bougie.
She is very.
She did. Oh.
She is very bougie from the little bit I know.
Yeah, I guess Tayshia is. Well, she's from
Orange County.
What kind of Orange County? Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, yeah. So maybe that was it. Maybe it was as simple as like he can provide a comfy life.
So yeah, maybe that's it. But she definitely, she didn't have the response that you would think she would have. Sure, it'd be like, all right, don't do that.
Yeah. Yeah, or like it was so easy for her.
He just also exudes sex to me, right?
No.
As a girl watching it, I don't look at Bennett and be like, "Yeah, I want that guy to throw me against the wall." You know?
Oh,
no.
He was so stiff. He was so stiff.
He looks like it's like, "Hey, let me be polite before I hit you up, missionary."
Yes. Oh God. It was whenever that's the one that when he would kiss her, it was like, it was so
awkward.
cringy. It was like, he did that. I think he's the one that blindfolded her during the, I forget what the circumstances were. And he like just went in for this kiss. It was so gross. It was so like predatory and like, ugh.
My guess is that's what Bennett hates most about Noah, because he sees Noah and he knows that Noah can do all those things.
And Noah exudes sex.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Noah is like, and confident, and like they had a real, ease. He had an ease about him. And Bennett was the opposite. Bennett's
ironing the sheets before you get into the bed to do it.
Oh, yes. God. And pointing out where the sheets are from and the thread count and how much they were. And yeah.
He's thinking more about his hand placement as associated to how he looks rather than how the person responds to it.
Yes, totally.
Like Bennett has sex like he's always filming a porno.
Like he's looking at himself in the mirror more than he's looking at her.
Yeah. No, it's definitely the American Psycho of it all.
It's very Patrick Bateman. It's also very like their dynamic. Noah and Bennett reminds me of like Jack from Titanic, like DiCaprio and Billy Zane. You know, don't they have that kind of like? Noah's kind of the younger. I also like that he's a nurse. He's like a travel nurse. And didn't Bennett belittle him about something like that? Bennett was just so belittling right away and dismissive of Noah. And I love that Noah called him out.
Noah was fighting coronavirus in the ICU in January, but before people were even calling it coronavirus.
No shit.
Yes.
December.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Wow.
We talk about it a little bit more with him tomorrow, but yeah, I mean, and then that's the thing, you know, like I'm biased for someone who comes from a large family, but like Noah has substance, and that's intimidating for some people, especially someone like Bennett who values himself as being so substantive, but rather he's more of like a shell. You know?
Well, it's all you said it. I think, Christy, you said it's all optics with Bennett.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all about the appearance. I mean, he's a really bad.
His glasses probably don't even have real lenses. I'm just kidding. I'm such
fashion
a
frames.
person.
Fashion frames.
I've worn a fashion frame, so hey, I can't.
But you admit to it. He wouldn't admit to it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised, Chrissy. I would not be shocked. And the way he played with them, like it was a prop. It's like he was playing. It was like a bad high school actor playing the role of like the erudite, accomplished Harvard guy. And how many times does he mention Harvard?
Version of Clue.
Yes, yes.
Bennett
totally.
probably played like it was a Harvard production of some sort of like movie, and he played the villain.
Yes, yeah,
and probably
it's
high
like
school because maybe not a Harvard production because it wasn't the theater major in Harvard. It was more.
No, in fact, a lot of people I know people who went to schools like that, Ivy League schools. My brother went to Princeton, and he hates saying where he went to school. If people ask him, and it used to drive my parents nuts because, like, they really worked hard to send him there to be able to afford it. But they would say, he would always say, somebody would say, "Oh, where'd you go to college?" He'd always go, "In New Jersey." And then they'd be like, "Where?" And he's like, "Like southern New Jersey, closer to." And my parents would be like, "He went to Princeton." He doesn't want to say. But the fact that he just kept trotting it out, like that credit of his was like, oh God. And then on top of it, not backing it up intellectually, it was like, that's like the worst of both worlds. Well, fascinating guy.
I'm glad we see eye to eye.
We'll see him on Paradise, I bet, right? Don't you think?
For sure. God, yeah. Both Noah and Bennett. In fact, those guys are.
And they're gonna like the same girl, and it's gonna play out. I can see it already.
Totally, because the producers are geniuses, and they will set it up. Yes, yeah.
And what we know about Bennett, though, is like Bennett, even more the producers will decide to like the girl Noah likes. Which I hope happens.
Yes.
I hope happens because Noah, we already know Noah's going to win that fight. You know?
Yeah. Well, he definitely outsmarted him during that 2-on-1 when he knew as soon as Bennett did his like weird shtick with the presents and like you're lacking in 3 out of the 4 emotion, whatever that was. As soon as that happened, I remember thinking, my brother and I said like, oh, just show Tayshia that. I mean. And he did. That's basically what happened. Tayshia was like, didn't she see the presents? And she was like,
it's unclear whether she opened it up. Like, there was a cliffhanger in an episode, and then in the next week it opened up.
Oh, they never really, that's true.
Yeah, and Bennett was like, I gave a gift to Noah. And it even sounded almost like an edited, like it sounded Frankenbit to be even on it, about that. So now hometowns. Now we have Ivan, Brendan, Ben, and Zach. I gotta say, I felt bad for these guys relative to like just the coronavirus of it all. Go ahead.
I disagree. I think there was something about this, the way this was set up, and because of the limitations, that made it so much more accessible as a viewer. I
think they did the best with what they could. I'm just from personal experience. I'll never forget that flight into Milwaukee, Wisconsin on Andy's hometown and the surreal feeling that I was bringing the Bachelor show home and I was bringing Andy to my home, and I tried so hard to make that surreal experience real, and I really liked Andy, and I just remember being on that plane, and I was sick. I was so sick, but the adrenaline took over my body, and it was just it was a feeling I'll never forget. It was a memory I'll never forget, and they definitely did the best with what they could, but to bring them to their hometown, it was such a powerful day and a day I'll never forget that like I feel like they got cheated of that moment.
Nick, let me just play, just thinking about what you said. I feel like I should play devil's advocate a little bit, having no experience with this at all. But I feel like when they went, isn't the most important part of the hometown, like, all that other fun stuff is like showing off your town and where you went to school. That's got to be fun and cool. I love when that happens in life, when you can take somebody you really like back to your hometown. But isn't like the most important part, if that idiom, home is where the heart is to be believed, isn't it where your family is and like, the people in your life? So like, I feel like this episode was so distilled in that sense. Like it was just, there was something very pure about it. They were just meeting. They were all in the same environment. There was no getting distracted by, somebody having like a nice house or funny friends or whatever it is. It was just like, I'm going to get to know this person better through their family, through the people that are closest to them. There's something really nice about that, I thought.
Yeah, I thought like it was a great hometown we got some really good emotional moments from all the guys. Brendan's and Ivan's family, I think, were my two favorites.
I liked Zach's a lot too. I liked the dad, how sweet he was I love that he was like, look, I'm from a small town and this is weird to me. I like when they address how strange the whole thing is. I appreciate that too, because, people kind of forget that the parents just the family members have no idea what's going on. Right. And you see all these different, but they've been fans of the show often, or they don't watch it, and they're so blinded. Right.
You know,
Yeah.
they're so blinded to what's going on. They said their goodbye to their son or daughter, and then 6 weeks later, they're meeting this, you know, quasi-famous person, and then their son or daughter's just like, I love them, and they're like, what?
Yeah, it must be so weird.
And like you're thinking, and like some of the parents are just like, blink if you're this is just a show thing, or you're like,
oh
you
my
know, like,
God.
and
Yeah.
or they don't really know. They're so confused. The parents
Well,
are.
I would have a hard. I'm trying to imagine my parents in that situation, and my mom is an actress, and so I can see her kind of like. And sometimes she's met, you know, exes of mine where she's been like excited because of who they were, you know, because they're whatever and I could see her being a little bit like playing up, and the cameras are on, and I know she would play that a little bit. And my dad is the opposite. My dad is like he's a professor, and he's doesn't care about that stuff. He would be so freaked out. I can't imagine how weird that must be, that all of a sudden, and the weirdest part being, like you said, that their kid is saying, I think I have real feelings for this. I think I might marry this person that I've known for a little while.
Like, what?
Crazy.
But yeah, that is. But I thought to that end, I thought all the family was all really sincere and level-headed about the experience, right? I really liked Ivan's dad's conversation with Tayshia, how he right off the bat was just trying to relate to her in a very real way. And he has such a limited amount of time, and he was like, have you been married before? I have too. It didn't work out. Now I have.
Yes.
It was just like, oh.
He was very impressive.
Usually you don't see that often with the parent trying to connect with the lead. It's always like the parent trying to connect with their son or daughter. But like to have Ivan's dad like try to have that moment and bonding experience with Tayshia, I thought was really great. And I don't think we get to see that often.
Yeah. That's well said. Yeah, I like that with I noticed, I wrote down when Zach's dad said thanks for, there was something very genuine and powerful about him saying thanks for spending the time with me. Like, thank you. Yeah. That says a lot about them. I noticed that Brendan does that a lot. Like, he checks in with her. He seems appreciative of her time too. I like that a lot. He seemed really
powerful.
earnest.
We've heard of Zach's story, right, and the struggles he's had, and so I think maybe that it read a little more sincere. When her dad was like, "Thank you for making him happy." I can see him being happy. Clearly, Zach is someone who's, I'm sure at times his family was worried about Zach's happiness.
I got that impression, and with the mom too. She seemed. That was very powerful. That they seemed like they had been through a lot. And it was just nice to see him smile, that he was smiling a lot. He was, I don't know if you saw this, but I think it was afterwards, and I actually felt really bad for him. He was sweating. I don't know why I'm so hung up on the sweat on some of these guys, but he was sweating so profusely that it was dripping from his chin as they were. Did you notice this, Chris?
It was like 115 degrees literally outside. So
I was actually like, finally they're showing somebody sweating. Because it was so hot there. It was it's real.
Your boy Brendan, he refuses to show his neck or chest line at all. Like, even when he had the button-up shirt, it was buttoned all the way up. He's a very fashionable guy. He's just going all turtleneck all the time. And we don't know this because they're not saying this, but like it was the middle of summer in Palm Springs.
Oh my God. Yeah, I noticed that a lot with he doesn't sweat that much though, Brendan.
No,
Zach
not at
sweats
all.
a lot.
Like, there's no.
Yeah. He did today. He did on that day. How sweet was that date with the niece?
Yeah.
How great was he with his niece?
No,
the way he kissed her on the cheek, and like he seemed like and they had the handshake. Oh my God, forget it. I was so moved by him and I'm gonna cry just talking about it. What he said about his dad, how his dad passed away, and his brother's become like a father figure. I love that guy. I think he is.
Brendan's relationship with his brother and Ivan's relationship with his brother were my two favorite parts.
Yes,
of the
Ivan's
hometown.
brother was me too. That was so moving to see the two. The surprise. Gabriel is his name, I think.
Gabriel.
Gabriel and such a smart. I mean, like, he had such an intelligence about him. Some of his choice of words I thought were so cool. The way he said certain things. He was like, I think I wrote some down. The way he spoke. Oh, it's righteous endeavor. He refers to talking to talking to Tayshia as Ivan's righteous endeavor. Oh, so cool. Really impressive guy. I like that family so much. And I love the mom was so like sweet and like Filipino, and I like that they cooked together. And
I thought that was great too. Of all the hometowns, Ivan I thought hit the home run with the daytime portion of like, yeah, can I just cook with her? You know, like
I know. There's something really, because it's true, and he says this on the date. Like that's what they would be doing. That's such a good example of. And this is why I like this setup, the stripped down version of the hometowns, is because, yeah, you get to do something. You don't have to like overthink it. I think Zach sort of overthought it with the whole cab device, but you don't have to overthink it. It could just be the two of them cooking together, and that is more revealing about what a relationship is going to be like anyway.
Yeah, I mean, to that end, you'll probably cook and not hail cabs. As part of the relationship,
right.
But like, I mean, it's tough. You know,
it's tough. What are you supposed to do?
Yeah, what are you supposed to do?
Wait, so are you as into Brendan as I?
He is as a character, not considering the relationships. He's been my favorite from the start. I liked
Me too.
I liked him and Ivan. Like the first episode in Claire's season. What I liked about Brendan is that here he's like, because you know he's an incredibly good looking guy, but like he you know, and like at first glance, because Bachelor is very like, they like their kind of very traditional attractive people, kind of like you know, your Bennett faces and your pretty blondes, but there's there's so many different types of attractive people. But like you almost have to look twice at Brendan to realize how good looking he is, right? And then his job is a roofer. I don't think people realize how hard of a job that is. Like
that's funny. You're doing the Wisconsin version of a roofer. That's a roofer.
Roofer. Yeah.
Roofer.
No, roofer.
Roofer.
Yeah.
How do you say ROOFing?
FER.
FER. I'm not a big
Roofer.
How do you? How would you just say ROOF? Rough. Isn't that funny? Yeah. Rough.
Sorry, that is the Wisconsin in me.
But it's a hard job.
That's such a hard job. It's like it takes a special person to do that.
But to me, that's natural. Like that's who he is, and I loved seeing him with his niece because he did come out. He was a little bit bigger and
dancing.
And the dancing was amazing.
Dancing around and. It was amazing, but I love he does this thing that is so sweet. I think when he addresses the awkwardness of the situation. He did it when they, every time I forget who the first contestant to run up on another one during the hometowns and like spin around. But now they do that every time. Like I feel like that was done once. Somebody jumped up on somebody, and now they kind of have to do that. It's sort of rote. But when he jumped up on, or she jumped up on him, and he goes, "Oh, should I spin you around now?" And they like laughed about it. There was something so sweet about, or like when he sees her again for the second part of the date, he's like, the second part. He called it like the second. Thanks for showing up for the second part. You look beautiful. And
there's a
he's so like considerate.
About him. Yeah,
I love him.
He seems kind and considerate. I to answer you, here's what I think. I mean, if we're gonna like maybe start talking about what we think's gonna happen. I think she's going to end up with Zach. I think, and I apologize in advance to Tayshia because I like as someone who was the Bachelor, there was nothing more infuriating than an audience member saying who they think I should end up with. But fuck it, this is what this show's about. I think Brendan is their best match. I think she's going to pick Zach, and I think both great people, Tayshia and Zach. My guess is in the long run, it's not going to work out because I think Zach's going to keep it a little too real than Tayshia wants it to be.
Meaning what? In what sense?
There's a rawness of Zach. Obviously, I think he's a straight shooter.
Yeah.
And I think, Tayshia, Orange County, she likes how things look, which is fine too. I just sometimes not everyone wants to not everything. Don't keep wanting to keep it real and being disingenuous. I'm not saying are parallel. Like some people just need to keep it real all the time, and sometimes that can be a little annoying and frustrating for people in your circle if the person you're dating is constantly keeping it real. I'm more of the keep it real guy, but I just don't see that necessarily in the long term working out for Zach and Tayshia. Well, that's just my guess. It's just a guess.
I don't know. A friend of mine who I texted about the show. She had said that she thought Zach C was going to win, and I was convinced like a week or two ago that it was 100% going to be Brendan, just based purely on how much they seemed to like each other. It was just something as simple as they enjoyed their time with one another. They got kind of bashful around each other. There was something so authentic when they see each other at those hometowns. I really feel like they missed each other, you know. And he is just so authentic and sincere. But this is the first time after that Zach hometown, it's the first time I thought, I think you both might be right, that she might pick Zach. It surprises me just because Zach seems like he tries a little harder than Brendan does.
But she also seems most physically attracted to Zach.
Maybe that's it. And it could be, and look, that's really important in the beginning. So
she's not laying down in a fountain with anybody else.
Yeah.
I just think Zach is a really dynamic personality, right?
They have a chemistry, though.
They have a chemistry, but also I can tell you, like, Zach just thrives in that atmosphere more than Brendan, right? And that's not a compliment or a criticism to either of them. Zach's clearly been through a lot. Like he thrives in stressful situations. And I'm not saying Brendan's crippling, but like Brendan's just like, he's more of the turtle, you know, slow, a little bit gradual. He doesn't need to be heard all the time, you know, and I think that just allows someone like Zach to shine a little brighter in that world.
To be a little bit more dynamic. That's well said.
That person's easier to get to know, right? Like, you know, in that atmosphere, you kind of get to know people who are better at talking about themselves, right? And that's just how that environment. That's a negative of that environment is that you feel like you're connecting with people you might not otherwise connect with, and you're not connecting with people you could have in a more normal setting.
I wonder if that calls into question his sincerity. Then I mean, Zach's. If what you're saying, I mean, to me, there are moments where he feels like there was one moment that felt very telling, like he didn't know what to say. He didn't have anything to say, and she had asked him something. It was they were on a one-on-one, and she said what she kind of called him out on it, and he said, no, it's just like you take my breath away. You like it's like this kind of like Ryan Gosling-y act that he does where he's like, no, darling, you like. It just struck me as insincere. I might be totally off base, and I
think I think they're both sincere. I think they're just different, and I think in that environment, it's what I think you're saying is like, you know, when someone knows what to say, that happens in Bachelor world all the time. Knowing what to say doesn't make you insincere, but sometimes people who know what to say can be insincere, right? I don't know if I'm saying that right, but like,
of course, yeah. And
you can love someone and still know what to say, you know?
Yeah, but the point is, like, I don't think he did know what to say. He had a moment where, and so rather than just admitting that, he kind of made it about how she took his breath away and he wasn't able to speak. I don't know. There was something about that.
You believe that his breathing was still fine in that moment?
Yes, I don't. I think he had.
That's fair.
It didn't seem like he was any distress, but he also how do you feel about this during the lie detector thing? First of all, don't you need like an expert to really administer a lie detector? Doesn't there have to be somebody who's really reading it properly? And
I assume, and I'm assuming that
no
person
offense
was
to
in
JoJo.
the room. No, I assume there was someone behind the scenes, but yes.
Yeah. Well, but he says he cheated on a girl, and that was like obviously that distressed Tayshia, and that was something that she questioned later. And he said, "Oh yeah, it was somebody later." Do you remember this? Where he says, "Oh, in sixth grade."
We had Raven from my season come on, and I didn't think about this, but she pointed out, and I ended up agreeing with her, that if you're in the middle of a lie detector test and you're asked if you're cheated, if there's you provide context. You don't just say yes and leave it in the air. Right. And then he had hours to think about a story.
That felt a little bit like, oh, this is what I mean about Zach. And like, I hate saying this because he seems like a nice guy, and his family was very earnest. And I know he's been through a lot, but that something like that strikes me. I just get a little bit concerned about a moment like that. That struck me as, and I might be totally wrong. It just struck me a little bit. I got my sensors went up, and yeah, you have hours to think about it. How am I going to get out of this? Because he was honest in the moment. He responded honestly. But if you really if you really cheated on somebody and admitted that in a lie detector, would you consider something that you do in 6th grade? I don't think. I mean, he laughed about it later, and rightly so. But I would. Yeah,
like how did that register?
How did that register? You think he was thinking that oh, this thing I did in 6th grade? I call bullshit. I think he cheated on somebody.
Here's how I see it could register, is that because every time we date someone, that's one of the questions that come up. Have you ever cheated on someone? It's like an early question that gets asked for someone that you're, and that could be his story he's told to everyone. And so that's why he's like, yeah, I have, but it was in 3rd grade. Maybe, I'm just saying if I'm, but I think you're right. It's fair to question. Like,
well, I think Raven's right too. I think Raven, that's a good point that she made, is that, you'd provide context. I think you'd at least be like, whoa, it was in 6th grade.
Yeah. Like right away. You don't wait.
Yes. Know? Yeah. Unless, I don't know how much of that is orchestrated, unless they told him to, but that to me, that would be a little concerning. And his hands, there's something self-conscious about the way he moves his hands, the way he hugs her. There's something very deliberate about his hand motions. I don't know. I think part of this too is just I'm such a fan of Brendan's that I just so badly want that love to be realized.
If Brendan ends up with Tasha, I would think they have a better chance of working out than if she ends up with Zach. That's just a guess. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I agree.
Who could be totally wrong, but I agree. I just feel like there's a better fit there.
But I came around on Zach a lot more after seeing his family. His family just seems so. Beatrice, the mom's name, I love that name. Beatrice seemed
Beatrice
seemed like
and Madeline, Justin's
great names, great names. But they seemed like they'd been through a lot, and they all really cared about each other. They just seemed like good people. It was nice. Usually there's one of the hometowns, there's some like, I'm thinking of, I don't want to say, I know it's kind of mean, but,
go ahead.
Like there's like like Peter's family was a little bit like, this is a different, group of people, but every one of these families seemed really kind and seemed like they loved their kid.
Yeah, no one. It didn't seem like anyone was there for their TV moment.
Right, that's what it is. They had an agenda. That's what it is. It's and maybe that's just a product of the stripped down version, and the fact that like this is a weird time for everybody, and like not getting to see so many people are starved for family members and not able to see one another. So like you could feel that sense of joy of everyone being together, and just the simplicity of them being there. Oh my God, when Ivan saw his brother and both brothers, the Brendan brother thing, for someone who's really close with their brothers, like that struck me. That was really nice to see.
Totally. So I know you kind of alluded to it, but are you still going to hitch your wagon to Brendan, so to speak, or
it's weird. I'm torn now, and I didn't think I would be. I was 100% on board with Brendan. To the point where I thought, oh my God, she may be just kind of like playing it up a little bit with these other guys because of what happened with Claire. I started thinking maybe the producers were like, look, this can't happen again, because the connection she had with Brendan just felt so. It felt like night and day from the other ones. It just felt so real. And when they'd see each other, and when she saw him how could you not love Brendan after seeing him with the niece? How sweet that, with a handshake and I mean, he just seems like such a good guy. and most importantly, he seems like he really just likes her. It's so crazy to see that on the show. I know it shouldn't be, and I know, but I so rarely see that, like a real connection. Like, oh man, that's palpable. Like that they gotta be together.
Yeah.
But no, now Zach, I'm seeing a little bit more of her attraction to Zach.
I think the most obvious chemistry that's shown on the show is between Zach and Tayshia. But I think part of like you said, it's just a personality. There's a slower pace that, and I get Brendan's reluctance. Like he was
Me too.
Married. You
Me
know,
too.
like there's a thoughtfulness of like he's taking it very serious. Like he tears up. He's like, this is very real for me. It's that classic case of like, I'm here. I didn't know why I showed up. What I need to experience. Oh shit, I like this girl. Oh shit, I think she likes me back. Holy shit, we're getting to the end, and like, can I really do this? Like, I want to do it, but I still need to believe in myself.
It reads as so sincere to me, and if I were Tayshia, it would be such a vote of confidence in this person's authenticity. It would be like, I mean, anybody who doesn't question that, whether or not they're ready to get married after a few weeks. I mean, come on, maybe it's a little bit easier for her to throw herself into because she's been on the show a bunch and she kind of like, I don't know, maybe it's just, this is the first time this guy's doing it. So it's, but it reads as so authentically like, this seems quick, but I really, really like this person. And I just hope, I don't know, I'm rooting for I hope she picks him. But
yeah.
You think Zach?
I have to get. I'm guessing Zach. I don't know. I'm spoiler free, but I'm interviewing the runner up next week. So I'm also like deciding like who would I want to interview. Like I'd be happy to interview both of them. We're also just kind of assuming it's not Ivan, right? I guess we're just assuming it's not Ivan. I honestly was shocked at Ivan. I thought Ivan was going home before Ben. That surprised me.
Yeah,
it seems like Ivan really likes Tayshia, and I think Tayshia respects Ivan more than she likes Ivan.
I think so too. I think what troubled me about Ivan is when they were talking about. He said something about how great it would be if they got together because of just what's gone on, just culturally, how it would look. Which is, of course, it would be, but. He said it like it would. He talked about them like they were characters on a show. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I get what you're saying. Like he was too aware of the optics rather than being, being consumed in the relationship.
Yeah, I just think like he's not. He just seems a little bit. Which I get. I mean, you're on TV. It must be a really uncomfortable thing to do. He just seems a little bit more uncomfortable. Whereas Brendan's moments of like where he gets a little shy or giggly it comes in because he's just so connected to it. It comes out of these very natural moments of connection with Tayshia, as opposed to like struggling for things. I never feel him like struggling for things to say or do or. He just seems like he's comfortable with her. I don't know how else to say it. He just seems like he's really present with her. Whereas like Ivan feels like, it's not as natural. It's just.
No, I've kind of felt that way about Ivan is that I've always liked him, impressive. And I think he's caught up in the show more than Brandon is.
Yeah.
The show is affecting his mindset more than Brandon.
For sure. And maybe that's just like, maybe that's a lot more natural than I'm giving him credit for. Maybe that's just.
Who really knows? And like, there's no fault to either. I mean, it affects all the people in there differently.
It was interesting to see how Ivan lit up. I mean, like, I think the difference between, when he was on when Claire was the Bachelorette, he was so clearly excited that Tayshia had shown up. I mean, they all kind of were, but I think Ivan particularly was like, oh man, now this is somebody I could really get into.
Game changer.
It
seemed like they all had that very similar reaction, and then they had Claire fatigue so much by then. It was just like,
yeah. But
they
it's
were all
also
like, they were like, next time lead with this, you know, like
I know. But Tayshia also said something like, I can always tell like how she feels about their connection, about the connections when she struggles with what to say about them, and and they'll say things that don't really make all that much sense. She'll say things like, Ivan lets me be me, you know, and like Ivan, which is like, I mean, you should always be, anyone should let you be you. Like that's not that rare a thing. Whereas with Brendan, it's just like, you know, he's not preventing you from being you. Wow, that's you should marry him. But whereas like with Brendan, I mean, not to labor the point, it's just she'll say things like, I just missed him, you know, and when you really like somebody, it's almost like you don't have to say much about them. The simple things speak volumes.
No,
you know, when
you're very right. Yeah, I don't personally, I've never really seen a very strong connection between Ivan and Tayshia.
No, I think you're right. I think she respects him, and you know, she's and he's an impressive person, and seems like he comes from a really nice family and all that. But yeah, there's no substitute for just like a natural connection for that liking to be around somebody. I think it's as simple as that. She likes to be around Brendan, and she seems to like to be around Zach too. Totally.
Well,
oh man, I'm excited.
We'll find out next week. Another back to back. Justin, I can't.
Oh, it is.
It's another back to back. Yeah.
Oh, great.
And I can't thank you enough for doing this. It's been a fun week talking with you. If you haven't had a chance to listen to Justin's Ask Nick, make sure to check that out. He gives incredible relationship advice. It was really fun to do that with Justin. Next week, Sarah Silverman helps us break down the last two episodes of The Bachelorette. So it's a lot of, and then we'll have the runner-up next Wednesday. So a lot of Bachelor coming at you to round out this year. So
can't wait.
Can't thank you enough, Justin. It's
thanks,
been a ton of fun.
Man.
Thanks for
so fun. Thanks, Chrissy.
Thanks for making the hat trick complete. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Hey, by the way, why don't you call it the Viall Files? Why don't you spell files like Viall?
I probably would have been smart. I just kind of threw out a name.
The files.
Files.
No, Nick, this is so fun. You know, I love talking about this stuff, and this is a blast to do it with you.
Happy holidays if I don't talk to you. Merry Christmas, all that fun stuff. Happy New Year. And hope to connect soon.
Okay, thanks, guys.
All right,
Bye,
thank
Justin.
you.
See you, Chrissy.
Right,
safe travels.
Thank you.
Bye.
As always, thanks for listening, guys. We appreciate Justin taking the time. Make sure to tune in next week. Big week next week. We have, obviously, the Ask Nick episodes. Sarah Silverman helps us break down the last two episodes of The Bachelorette. And whoever the runner-up is will be on the show on Wednesday to essentially have there's no AFR. So we're having our AFR with whoever the runner-up is. So thanks for listening. We appreciate you. Subscribe, rate us 5 stars. All the best. We will see you on Monday.